Hello, Scoop Troop. Welcome back to another episode of The Sober Scoop. My name is India Gantz. I'm your host, and today we're going to be talking about rock bottom. I get asked all the time if I hit a rock bottom, and people tell me that they've hit a rock bottom, and they tell me their stories. People have said that they're waiting to quit until they hit a rock bottom. It is a common topic in the sobriety world. So let's jump right in and talk about it. Welcome to the Sober Scoop. This is a judgment-free zone where we talk about how to get sober and stay sober. You're not alone. I hope you feel seen. Quitting alcohol is the best decision I've ever made. So like I mentioned in the intro, a lot of people feel like they have to hit some sort of rock bottom in order to kick alcohol 100%. People think that they can moderate or suffer through their addiction, basically, until they hit a rock bottom. And then that's their sign that okay, now it's time to get my shiz together. And I'm here to tell you that you do not have to hit a rock bottom in order to quit alcohol 100%. And there are many reasons why. One, what a frickin' blessing it is to quit a substance that was guiding you down a bad path before you get to that bad path. I mean, the way that my life was headed based on how I was behaving was really, really bad. I was headed to a place where I would have done something stupid, got in trouble, ended up in jail. I don't know, lost somebody important to me. Some rock bottom, some horrible thing would have happened, but I caught it before it did. And yeah, it's kind of funny, this term rock bottom, and people kind of assuming that it has to happen in order for you to be sober. It does not have to happen. And it is a blessing and a beautiful thing to catch it before it gets to a place that is so bad, like a rock bottom. But on the other side of things, if you have experienced a rock bottom and that's why you're sober now, then fine. You know, we all got to this place eventually, no matter what happened in our lives, whether horrible things happened, or maybe we just recognized that we were developing a bad relationship with alcohol and we said, okay, let's kick this. We all ended up sober. And that is what we need to focus on. How we got there and what happened and all this guilt and shame and whatever else that people might be experiencing does not matter, because you got to the place of sobriety. Okay, so while I did not hit a quote-unquote rock bottom, it's kind of hard to define that, by the way, because I feel like I hit several different mini rock bottoms. If rock bottom is floor 0, I was hovering at floor 1/4. I was getting really dang close to a rock bottom, and I had several situations that could have ended up being really bad, and they didn't. I somehow got blessed that I've made so many mistakes and done things that I should not have done. Some things that I will never, ever be comfortable sharing on this podcast. And hopefully you guys can just understand that, because I'm sure you have some things that you would never share publicly on a podcast. I have some secrets myself that I will never share. And I am blessed that none of those bad mistakes, none of those errors that I've made, none of those bad decisions led me to something super horrible, because they could have. A lot of bad things that happen to people, if you think about it, could have happened to you, but you got lucky. I mean, I think about that when I watch these prison documentaries and stuff. And, I'm going to make it not personal, okay? Someone might be in there for dealing marijuana 10 years ago when it wasn't legal, and now they're in there. And that could have been a lot of different people. But some people made it out and some people got in trouble for it. Some people make the decision to drive home when they shouldn't be driving home. And for some people, they make it home unscathed. They didn't hurt themselves. They didn't hurt anybody else. And for some people, They end up in prison with a DUI or a second-degree manslaughter, and that completely ruins more than just the drinker's life. You've just ruined the victim's life and everyone around them. I mean, that's the most horrible thing I could ever imagine. And like, I'm getting emotional just thinking about it, but like, I definitely when I was down the path of problematic drinking, I made decisions to drive when I shouldn't have. And like, that's what I'm talking about, is like, my decision to do that could have ended very, very differently. And that result might be someone else's rock bottom of how they finally quit drinking. But for me, I'm so blessed that the rock bottom didn't come to fruition, basically. Like, I got blessed in life so many times, and I knew that if I continued in the way that I was, one of those times wouldn't have worked out. One of those times I wouldn't have gotten lucky. And I'm not just talking about the driving while drinking. I'm talking about all sorts of different mistakes that we make when we are under the influence of alcohol. And statistically, if I was continuing to make mistakes, one of them wouldn't have worked out eventually, and my life could look very, very different. I mean, I think about times when I Ubered home from like a bar or a party or something, and it's like 2:30 a.m., 3 a.m., whatever. And I would just straight up fall asleep by myself in the back seat. And the Uber driver would be shaking me awake, saying, "Miss, hello, we've made it." You know, how many horror stories have you heard about Uber drivers doing bad things to their drunk female victims alone in the back seat? And I fully fell asleep on the drive home. They could have taken me anywhere. I was passed out. That happened numerous times. I mean, I could go on and on about close to rock bottom situations. Like I said, some things I'll never mention on here, but just trust me, I've done things that I'm not proud of. And I'll live with those mistakes for the rest of my life. Luckily, I'm still here. I'm not in jail. I'm not dead. And I got very lucky. Some people are not so lucky, and that is their rock bottom if they live to see it. The intro to this podcast is that it's a judgment-free zone. So I hope that in me making the decision to open up a little bit about some of these things, you will not judge me. I've recognized that I had a problem. I've recognized that I didn't have control of myself and I made so many mistakes, and I fixed it. And while I will live with those mistakes, like I said, I'm blessed that nothing absolutely horribly tragic happened. I'm sorry for the decisions that I've made. I have regrets. I have guilt. But please don't judge me, because I hope that me coming on here and talking about this stuff helps people on their journey to sobriety and pulls more people out of their problem with alcohol. And sometimes it takes admitting things like this in order for somebody else to kind of wake up and be like, oh my God, that's where I'm headed too. So in our Facebook support group, which if you haven't joined, you definitely should. I'll leave the link to join in the show notes, as always. But in that Facebook support group, I asked for some suggestions for the podcast episodes that I should make. And one person asked about sort of rock bottom and just like mistakes that I've made, because they said that hearing those mistakes that I've made kind of helps them feel better about their mistakes, or just like embarrassing moments, things like that. And so I got to thinking about various things that I've done, and I don't love reminiscing on those things. Oh my God, but I'll tell you a couple. Why not? Like I said, no judgment, right? Okay. One time I was supposed to be speaking at this event, a huge conference in front of hundreds of doctors, because I received a procedure and I was a spokesperson for that procedure. So I had been drinking before the presentation, And it was a little bit of a drive. And yes, like I already said, I've made decisions to drive when I really shouldn't have. And I'm forever mortified by those decisions. Never drink and drive. Just don't do it. Please let this be your sign. Just don't do it. Behave however you want. Do whatever you want. But don't get behind the wheel. Just call the frickin' Uber. That's my biggest advice for people. If you're still struggling with your drinking, just don't do it. It's never worth it. Literally never worth it. Get the Uber. You can pick up your car another day. You can have a friend pick it up. Like, there are always ways around it. Don't get in the car. Okay, PSA over. So I was supposed to make this big presentation, and I had drank before to calm my nerves, and then I got in the car and drove to this presentation. And there was so much traffic, and I was really, really pushing it like I was going to be late. And so on my drive down, I pulled over on the side of the road and peed into a like Gatorade bottle and got urine on myself and on my car seat, and my car seat smelled like frickin' piss for quite a while after that. That was a hard one to explain to the boyfriend, who didn't know that I was drinking to that extent before a presentation and frickin' peeing my pants. Anyway, yeah, got it a little bit everywhere and dumped out the pee on the side of the road. And thank God I had extra pants because I brought golf clothes. So I put on my golf pants and did the presentation with urine remnants on my legs. Yeah, that was a low. I figured I probably stunk like pee. I mean, apparently I kept it all under wraps pretty well because they invited me to come back time and time again. I continued my work with them for quite a while. But that moment was definitely a little bit of a wake-up call. I almost consider all these mistakes to be wake-up calls rather than rock bottoms. But it took several wake-up calls for me to finally say, let's just stop this. But that was a pretty bad one. I was so embarrassed of myself. And then, you know what's so funny is I go into that presentation or whatever, and they're like, hey, would you like some champagne before you go on? And I'm like, oh, no, thanks. Like, I don't want to drink before work, when I was already tipsy from having drank before I even left. Like, that is how much I tried to hide my drinking problem, is that I would lie like that. Like, I would go out to breakfast with friends. I would have already had 3 beers before I left the house. And I would get to brunch and I would like not order a mimosa and say, oh, I'm trying to be healthy right now. Like, I'm trying not to drink as much. When I was already tipsy at brunch, and then I'd go home and drink more. I was like trying to pretend that I was making good decisions for my health and like not having this massive drinking problem. I tried to hide it from everyone, and I would make up crazy things. That's one thing that's so freeing about being sober too, is that I don't have to lie all the time. Like, I am a truthful, honest person. It's one of my favorite qualities about myself. And I hate that during my drinking problem, I lied a lot. Yeah, it's embarrassing. It's horrible. I'm not proud of myself for having done that. I lied to the people that I was literally closest to, who I would never lie to about anything else unless the topic was around alcohol. Another moment that I had was towards the end of my alcohol problem before I got sober. I was on a pretty regular morning drinking schedule, and I was in a long-term relationship at that point, and so some nights I would stay at my boyfriend's place, and you know, I wake up in the morning, and if we're going to spend the day together, I'm going to be pretty like physically craving a drink in the morning. And I had to do all sorts of weird things to get a morning drink. Like, for example, we were going to watch football with one of his friends. And so I said, I just kind of want some alone time. Like, we went out last night and we're going to hang out with friends again today. Like, I just need some alone time. I'm going to go for a drive. If you're a drinker, how many times have you said, I'm going to go for a drive, or I'm going to go for a walk? Like, anything to get by yourself so you can go behave in your problematic way. But anyway, so I go to the grocery store and I got grocery store sushi and a freaking giant, what are those cans? Like 30 ounces, 24 ounces of the michelada, canned michelada. That was like my hangover drink. I loved micheladas. And then, of course, I got a big tall boy Coors Light as well to wash it all down. And I borrowed my boyfriend's car to go do that. So, of course, I had to get rid of the cans, right? So, on the drive home back to his place, after I had my little alone time, I dumped the cans in a neighbor's garbage can. And it was a pretty nice neighborhood, like a pretty bougie neighborhood. And for the next week, I was freaking out that they were going to get me in trouble and call me out for doing that, because when I threw away the cans, I looked down the street and I saw a few people looking at me. First of all, dumping trash in somebody else's recycling bin. You know, in those freaking bougie neighborhoods, like some Karen's going to be like, she threw her trash in my garbage can. You know what I mean? So these people saw me throw my trash in somebody else's garbage can. I'm driving in my boyfriend's car, so it's linked to him. They probably know him, have seen his car around, know where that car lives. You know what I'm saying? And I was freaking out for literally a week that he was going to ask me, did you dump Coors Light and michelada cans in the neighbor's garbage can the other day? And I don't even know where I would have begun explaining that. Like, yes, I needed a morning drink. Yes, I lied and said that I was going for a drive and instead just sat in the grocery store parking lot drinking alcohol by myself. Yes, I dumped trash into your neighbor's garbage can. I don't even know how I would have explained that. And I don't know, that I know that doesn't sound like that big of a deal, throwing trash in somebody else's garbage can, but the fact that that moment could have blown my cover and like made it so that I had to explain myself and probably explain a lot of things to my boyfriend. He discovers that and he's like, wait, you're drinking in the mornings now? Are you okay? Like, that would have had to be a whole conversation and my cover would have been blown. I would have had to like out myself as a quote unquote alcoholic. I don't like using that word, but you know what I mean. It's the shorter way to say someone with an alcohol problem. So there's a couple stories for you that just stuck out in my mind of my like close to rock bottom experiences. I had so many close calls with getting discovered. And I mean, there's the age-old story of the trash. I always talk about the trash and how I would never let my boyfriend take out the trash because in that trash is bottles and cans clanking around, and he's like, he would be thinking to himself, what is all this stuff? Like, I was just over yesterday. How are there 12 cans and a bottle of wine in the garbage? Well, that's because I'm a closeted alcoholic. Okay. Yeah, I could think of 100 million stories, but I hope that in sharing some of these, you feel a little bit more comforted. That is my hope. Sometimes it can feel like nobody else is going through what you're going through or like they couldn't understand you. And so I hope that by hearing my story, you realize that you're not alone. And you're probably thinking to yourself, I've done way worse stuff than those things. Okay, me too. But I'm not going to share it on the podcast. So whatever you're thinking, just know that me and probably other people in this world have done similar things to that too. We're right there with you. And you don't have to feel alone. And as long as you're taking a step to better yourself and better your life and be a better person in this world, try to relieve yourself of the guilt and shame from the mistakes that you've made along the way. Okay. I realized that I took quite a tangent there. The episode is supposed to be about rock bottom. And all I have to say is that if you are blessed enough to be exploring sobriety before a rock bottom or before you're forced into sobriety by the frickin' court system or something, like, power to ya. You are never too young to get sober. It's never too soon to get sober. Like, if you are blessed enough to catch it early, then run with it. That is a godsend. You are so lucky because some people wait and wait and wait until their life has completely blown up and they've lost everything that they care about. before they finally kick alcohol. And if you're catching it before then, wonderful. But if you have hit a rock bottom, just know that you're not alone. I had so many close calls to a rock bottom, and the messages that I've received, by the way, feel free, as always, to DM me, email me, and tell me your stories about your rock bottom. You can open up to me. I will never, ever judge you. And let me just say that I have seen it all. I have seen and heard it all. I've received so many DMs from people telling me about their rock bottoms and how crazy their situations got. And so you could never tell me something that would shock me. Like, I have literally heard it all. So just know that whatever you're going through, whatever you've done, someone else has probably done it too. And you're not alone. And like I said, put the focus on the fact that you are changing your life and bettering your life, and relieve yourself of that guilt. That's also a note to self. Okay. Thank you for listening to this a little bit more vulnerable episode. I'm kind of like shocked that I decided to say a couple of those things that I've been holding back for the entire existence of this podcast. But, these little snippets into how I drank and my bad decisions along the way, I think help give a little bit of backstory on me and also just make people feel less alone. So thanks for not judging me, and I'll see you for the next episode. Bye.